Hello, it's Courtney with balancewithcourtney.com. I am passionate about helping others discover their happy and inspire them to make it a daily habit. My intention is to hack happy by interviewing experts to share their story to inspire others and create a happy movement. Today's happy expert is Deb Acker. Deb learned a long time ago that the key to true happiness meant moving away from it. She realized at an early age, through the loss of her mom at 17 and her dad leaving before the age of 2, that running away from herself, her emotions, and her pain only caused more of it, and that your only true out is in. Today, she embraces it all to feel the light in the darkness, the joy in the sadness, and the perfection in everything. With this, she coaches women through the patterns, pain, and abandonment, a pattern she healed within herself to know true joy, peace, and trust, no matter what's occurring, and most importantly, to celebrate and relish in this crazy, juicy, up and down thing we call life. Deb has studied with some of the top teachers in the world to become a powerful, intuitive healer and channel. She has written for the Huffington Post, Elephant Journal, Women for One, and Thrive Global, and is completing her first book, Living Deeply, a transformational journey through deep pain, loss, and abandonment to healing, self-love, and miracles, which will be out in 2019. When she's not clearing energy blocks and childhood patterns, teaching around the country, or writing, you can find Deb working out and traveling the world, savoring the beauty, people, cultures, and adventures. Welcome, Deb.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful and excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. And I'm so excited about, oh my gosh, you've been everywhere. It's funny, when I was introduced to you, I mean, you'd have no idea your journey until I get to read your bio. And wow, you have done so much. And I mean, writing and coaching and an intuitive healer and so many beautiful gifts. And just describing how you found your happy just in your bio is so inspiring.
Yeah. It's been a really fun, crazy up and down journey that I do mention in my book too. So I talk about a lot about it, right? And kind of all of the processes that we go through to really, I feel like, to open and really come to our true selves and who we're meant to be. And I always feel like happiness is a byproduct of the work, right? Not the work itself. And so, so grateful that I've been able to just come and find that space within myself, which has really been about healing the pain and healing the abandonment that occurred for me when I was a little girl. So
Yeah. So to start out, will you share your story of how you found your happy?
yeah, absolutely. So for me, basically, the way I really got on this path and the way that I really got on this journey was several years ago now. I had the pattern of attracting the same type of guy over and over. The type of guy I was attracting was typically unavailable men, whether they were physically unavailable, emotionally unavailable, in some way they were unavailable. And I got to the point, I had been in therapy at that time, in therapy for quite some time. And while I had awareness of why I was attracting this, that awareness alone wasn't changing anything, right? And what ended up happening was I was at that point in my life prepared to do something different to create a different result. And, I desperately wanted love. I desperately wanted to meet my partner. And so that kind of was the impetus for my journey, right? And later I would find out it was really, this creation of my dad leaving when I was 2 and my mom passing away when I was 17. The creation of those two things together were really the impetus for me to set me on my path, right? And basically ended up starting to work with, at the time, I really, besides that pattern that I mentioned, I didn't really know a lot about patterns, but started to work with patterns and healing my patterns. And as I did that, I started to return to my true self, right? The true self that was within me, the true self that is joy, right? That is abundance, that is love at all times, right? And so it was a really beautiful journey that I was able to start to go on and move down and really dive into this beautiful thing of life and start to embrace all of the things that had happened to me, and not just, oh, well, this was good and this wasn't good, so I'm not going to look at that or really own that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Knowing that you have that happiness within inside you on this whole journey, you've had it forever. It's just like peeling the onion to discover the true essence of it. And then it is within you and not around everything surrounding you.
right, exactly.
Yeah. And it's such a hard thing to accept that you are creating your reality, right? So you are attracting all these men that seem to be the same because you're making the same actions, and you're not visiting really why you are attracted to those men. And so what a huge step in healing that you took, and so brave.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, a lot of times that is one of the hugest and the most important keys, right? Is that we are willing to do something different to create a different result. Like for the longest time I said I wanted something different, and people would suggest get a new therapist, like try something new. And I would say I wanted something different, but I was doing the same things. And so nothing was really shifting the way that I really wanted it to.
Right, right. Will you define what happiness means to you?
Yeah. So, I think happiness for me is being able to enjoy everything, no matter what's occurring in your life. And also, like, so when something quote unquote bad happens, right, being able to actually, like, can you see the good in that space,
Mm,
right? Again, I don't think that happiness is outside of us, and I don't think that happiness is really if it's that space of like I'm searching for happiness, then I'm putting it outside of myself, and naturally by putting something outside of myself, I'm creating separation between it and me,
yes,
right? And
yes.
so when I can be in that space of seeing the beauty and the gifts in every single thing, right? When I can see the beauty and the magic that is all around me, the magic, I write about this in my book, but the magic of my father leaving it too, right? I told him, I was like, you're kind of the hero in this book, right? Because you were the first person that set me off on my path, obviously unbeknownst to me at 2 years old, and did not know this. And there was a lot of pain in my childhood as a result of what had happened in that moment. But to be able now to be in those spaces and see, if I'm struggling with something, to be able to see the gift in that, see the beauty in that, see the magic, see the joy in that, that to me is being able to live in that space no matter what's occurring in your life.
Mm. What do you do? Because, we all have our bad days, and we find ourselves going into our dark thoughts or going into our negative thoughts. Do you have what is your technique for kind of waking yourself up and getting yourself out of that and saying, no, I have the power. I have the answers within me. I need to focus on what I want to create, focus on the positive, find the happiness within. What do you do to help you get there?
Yeah, so for me, actually, I do the opposite of what most personal growth teachers out there tell you to do.
Yeah.
I stay with it and I own it, right? So
Mm.
I give myself the opportunity for me to own those feelings. So if I'm scared, I actually go into the space of saying, whether it's out loud or it's inside. I usually like to say it out loud with the idea of it releasing, right? Not reinforcing it, but with the
Mhm.
idea of it releasing, I'll say, I'm scared. I'm scared right now. I'm scared that, fill in the blank, right? And I'll say that until, for me, you can even feel now, I just said that, right? And it just got lighter. I don't,
Yeah.
it's very subtle, but so
Yeah.
I really encourage you, it's one of those things, like I said, we get trained to try to rewrite those or overwrite them without honoring them. And when you honor it, the energy releases. And I talk about a lot about this, a lot of different tools like this in my book as well. But when you honor it, the energy releases. And
Mm.
when that energy releases, then when I go to say, I'm excited, it feels true, it feels real, it feels, alive, it feels, again, rooted in truth, versus I'm excited, but I haven't honored the other part of me that's there for a reason, right? Which is there to
Right.
be honored as well. So that's a lot of what I like to do, especially in those, when if I'm sitting up and I'm working on something, I just like to go and be with what is, as opposed to trying to push it away, pretend it's not there, override it without having honored it, because it is there for a reason. And most of the time, so I believe we have a little girl that lives inside of us, or a
Mm.
little boy, depending on how you define yourself, right? But for me, I have a little girl that lives inside of me, and her fear is coming up, for instance, to be honored, right? She's coming up. Everything that we create, when I was creating, this pattern of attracting the same person over and over, right? I was creating that for my little girl to have that voice that she didn't get to have in childhood, which was
Mm.
part of it was, please don't leave me. Right.
Right.
I mean, there was many voices, right? But there was these voices. And so as I started to honor that voice and honor that anger and honor that pain, all of it, that's when it started to change. When I was in therapy and we're like, okay, well, this is happening again because your dad left when you were 2. That was great having that awareness, but it didn't shift anything because I wasn't taking the energy off of the moment. Right.
Right. Right. You weren't feeding it.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and when I say take the energy off, so it's like feeding it could sound like you're energizing it, or feeding can sound like you're taking the energy off of it, right? So to be
True.
clear,
True.
it's taking the energy off of it in the terms of I'm giving it attention so that it can dissipate,
Mm.
right? Now, I'm not giving
You're
it
letting it
attention.
be heard. Would that be
Right.
another way to say it?
Say that, and I'm not doing it so that I can get stuck in my circle and keep circling, right? I'm giving it the time and attention so that it can release. So so that's one of the things that I love doing. And like I said, I think it's not talked about enough, and for me it's made all the difference in every aspect of my life.
Yeah, it's these thoughts and feelings come up throughout the day for everyone, and we tend to just stuff them back in and say, nope, don't have time for this. I don't want to feel this right now. I want to feel this, and you just keep stuffing them in. But you're really saying, okay, you're here. What are you having to tell me? And you're visiting it, you're acknowledging it, and you're talking to it or letting it speak, which is so scary. I mean, my heart's racing just thinking about it, right? Those unknown feelings, we don't know why they're coming up. We are so scared of them, we don't want to visit them. But you're letting them breathe and speak, and then they go away. They just want to be heard like everything else, right?
Exactly. We're just giving them space, just like everything else, just so that because they just, like you said, they want to be heard, right? They want to be honored. And the thing is that we get trained to define certain emotions as good and certain emotions as bad. And I would propose that all emotions are good, right?
Right.
Because all of us are the true goal of being here on earth, right? The true purpose, right, is growth and expansion and love,
Right.
right?
Right.
So when we can go, you can't expand, it would be very hard to expand if you were in one emotion your whole entire life,
Mm.
right? So if I'm in one emotion, we're talking about happy. So if I'm in the emotion of happiness my entire life, that would be very hard to continue to keep expanding, right? Because there's none of that push pull, that resistance that can help us to keep growing, and not just growing like
Right.
this, but growing like that.
Right.
So does that make sense?
Oh, it makes total sense. And the name of my business is Happy Balance. And what I mean by that is when I feel out of balance, I look within to find out what needs to be heard, what needs to be nourished, what needs to be cared for, so I can get back to that feeling, that um, feeling of peace and calm and just so comfortable within yourself. And that is listening to those emotions, and that is paying attention to everything. And there's never a dull moment, right? We're constantly growing, like you said, and expanding and learning. And every morning we wake up, we're a completely different person sometimes. And we have to say, okay, hello, Courtney, today, what do you need? What do you have to tell me? And it's a constantly moving, it's a story constantly playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
Can
yeah,
you,
yeah.
do you remember the time when the time in your life when you finally said, okay, these dark thoughts or these things I'm feeling, I need to visit, I need to acknowledge, I need to be in?
Yeah, I mean, basically the start of that was that journey of okay, I'm going to do something different to create a different result, which for me was a retreat, right?
Okay.
And in that retreat, they gave us space to feel everything. And I didn't realize how angry I was in that moment at my father, right? I had a lot of rage and anger. And there are some reports out there that honoring if rage for me I had taken it on from my family, right? But if rage like lives within you, sometimes there's some reports out there that if you honor that, it's actually doesn't dissipate it. For me, it dissipated because it wasn't really mine, right? It just had been, I believe that our emotions get stored in our body. And then, if we feel them, they can release from our body, right? And release from ourselves, which in essence, when they release, a lot of the things that cause illness can cause illness in our life are emotions, right? And the emotions that are stored in our body. So, you want to create a healthy reality, a healthy life. One way to do that is to honor these, right? But that was the start of like realizing the power of my emotions, because I just remember, they don't have clocks in the room that we were in. And I just remember being in that room and people were like looking at me because I just was like, I was in the process. Like I'm one of those people, especially the old me was very much like, you got to get your money's worth. And so I'm in that room and I was like, I'm getting my money's worth, as more of a subconscious pattern than anything, right? But they didn't have clocks in there, so I have no clue how long I spent in that process. But all I know is that I felt so free after it, right? It was, I know we spent the day there, right? But I felt so free releasing that and honoring that part of me that had just never really had kept trying to make it okay when it wasn't okay. So that was kind of the start of it. I don't know if that answers your question, but that to me, that would be kind of when I would say I really started to, and then it's sort of moved up from there. I'll give you a little bit more of the story. So, I got home from that retreat, and at that point, I was on a part of my journey where I was trying to maintain good all the time. So I still wasn't fully in the brilliance of all emotions, right? And I was like trying to maintain you walk out of this retreat in a very euphoric state, right? And I spent about 6 months there, which was great. And, I had some things that were like, it was starting to be like, this isn't a maintainable state, nor is it ever been the goal, right? But I know that, like, for me at the time, it was like, this is the goal. I'm going to try to stay in this euphoric state for the rest of my life, right? And, there were some things that following year, and I talk about this in my book, like a friend committed suicide, but there were some things that year that started to create that next level of expansion, that next level of growth, right, for me. And it was about basically a year and a half from that retreat later when I came to energy clearing, which was kind of the next foray into, okay, I start to own all of my emotions, right? Energy clearing, again, is really just clearing those emotions and those feelings that aren't working for you and old patterns and beliefs and stories out of your body, right? Because there's a statistic out there that 95%, scientist Bruce Lipton, talks about 95% of our programming is subconscious.
Wow.
So what happens is that, I was like, that's give a chance to actually for that to land. 95% of our programming is subconscious, right? So if we are, most of us are creating most of our results and making most of our decisions based on the 5% that we see, right? Or the 5% that, so say for instance, you're looking at two different programs, right? One program might say, this teacher might be saying, or the coach might be saying, I help X, Y, and Z create these results, right? And the other person may not have as many quote unquote physical world results, right? If you're tuning in just to what you see, which is the way that we get conditioned to experience this life, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just part of the journey to learn how to tune into that 95%, which for me is my zone of genius. Like, it's the place I love to play, right? But you got this 95%. So if I start to become aware, in that example, for instance, of, oh my God, how does this feel for me? Does this feel like a yes in my body? Does this feel open? Does this feel exciting? Does this feel juicy, right? And I start to tune into some of that subconscious stuff. It's like, well, I'm just feeling a yes, and I don't have a reason why. And the physical world part of me says, this is my yes, the other option, for instance. Then it's like, okay, wait a minute. I need to step back and realize, okay, wait, there's some information here for me. And that I do a lot of this. I do a lot of sales, clearing sales, subconscious sales blocks and barriers, right? But if we play in the 95%, we get results rooted in that 95%. So it's so much richer there than the 5% will create results. It just will create, it's like results that are, I guess I would say the word that comes to me is more flat.
Yeah.
That, you got all this like energy and yumminess. And so, one of the biggest pieces of my mission in this world is to help people to play in the subconscious, to understand, to be able to see it, and to recognize, like, oh my gosh, I took this on and it does not even working for me. I mean, and there's so many times, so many examples where we'll take something on and it doesn't even make sense. Right. I'm trying to think of an example. Like one of my clients I don't hold my client stuff because it just keeps that in place. And I don't want to keep it in place. Right. We're really, but he had this paradigm of if he wasn't in the equation, he would win. And if he was in the equation, he would lose. So that doesn't make any sense, right? In the consciousness, you're like, if I'm in it, I will lose, right? But somewhere in the course, it was around when he was a kid, probably around age 7 with his father, somewhere in the course of that, and that's part of what I do in my work, right? Is that I'm able to hone into, okay, at this age with this parent, this is what was taken on that is now defining your present day reality. But somewhere at that point, he took on, if I'm in it, I actually lose. So I should take myself out of it. And he's in business, right? So this idea of him being in business and like he can't actually be in it. If he's in his business, he's not going to win, right? It's not creating a result that he really wants, right?
Wow.
And so when we're able to see, it's a huge awareness. And pretty much every single time I sit down with someone, I'm helping them see these huge pieces that it's like, oh my God, I never realized that. And to understand like that's having a really huge impact, right?
Yeah.
A really huge piece on my life, and I want to change this, right? And so we have processes, and part of it's voice embodiment, right, and voice activation, but I have different processes that I'll take someone through to help them not only to see it, but to shift it quickly and heal it within themselves so they can start to create the reality that they're truly wanting versus the reality that's not working for them, but that their little kid was like, basically felt like his little kid felt diminished, right? And so in the process of feeling diminished, he would create these results because it was never about him, right? And so it was never about him. So he was like, the only way for it to be about him would be for him to lose.
Right.
So that's wild, right? When you think about this, the only way for it to be about me is for me to lose. Like, so basically he would create this result of losing at all times. So it could be about him.
Yeah.
We started to shift that. We worked on that in our last session together, but like all of a sudden things start to change, right? And start to shift.
So losing is winning.
Right. Exactly. And when you have that paradigm, it doesn't work for you. It's wild. But think about, there's a statistic out there, 50 to 70,000. We have 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. So first of all, how many of those are you aware of?
Mm-hmm.
How many of those are actually working for you?
Mm-hmm.
And then how many of those do you have that are these subconscious thoughts and ideas that you're not aware of, that aren't working for you, and yet are literally, because they hold so much energy, so much charge, right? You're creating them over and over and over again.
So that just sounds so overwhelming to someone that has never heard this before. So
Okay.
Is there something that you could give? Because I know my tribe that's watching this is just like, oh my gosh, where do I even begin? Can you give like a first step, something just to give them, okay, I'm going to start here?
So first of all, let me ask you, what about that is overwhelming?
Well, if majority of our thoughts we aren't even aware of, and we have to lose to win, and so much is happening in our outside world that is creating the actions we're taking. How can we feel in control? I guess that's what it is. When I just heard you speaking, I'm like, we have no control. It's like, what can we grasp onto to know that we're moving forward towards healing?
So
we're moving forward to finding our happiness.
Yes. Okay. So here's what comes up to share with you. The way that I started to take control of everything in my reality and actually started to identify this. So first of all, let me mention to you, like the losing, winning, that was his paradigm. It may or may not be, the people that are listening to this, it may not or may not be yours, but if it resonates for you, that's really good, right? It's really good to go, is this something that lives within me? Right. But what I always like to do, the step that I started with, so years ago when I started to really realize I was creating everything, I would say to myself, so something would happen in my reality that I'd be like, I didn't want this to happen, quote unquote. And I would ask myself, how did I create this?
Right.
What lives within me that created this? How is this serving me? How is this here to help me to grow? And how is this here to help me to shift and change? So that's when, I'll say those again. I'll just say this thing, right? Basically, how did I create this?
Yes.
Right? How is this here to help me to shift, to change, to grow? What is this here to help me to see within myself that maybe I'm not seeing? Right?
Right.
And so do you feel like that's a helpful question to kind of get you back in the driver's seat, so to speak?
Oh, definitely.
Mhm.
Definitely. Yeah. You just gave a couple small steps, just questions you could ask yourself. I absolutely love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, I think everyone just needs some, okay, I get it and it makes total sense, but what can I do today? What can I
Right.
do right now? What is one step I can take right now?
Right. Right.
Yes.
And so that's like, that was the thing that like really helped me to start to see my role in my reality. And
Mm,
then when I would see something that wasn't working for me, you can use the voice process that I just described, right? Or you could see, because those beliefs, I believe, again, get stored in our body, you can see that leaving your body and then just
mhm.
replace it with a higher activation, a higher energy, a higher feeling. So that could be light, that could be joy or happiness, right? That could be
Mhm.
abundance, right? So that could be anything that's just lighter, right? So you see that coming out, and then you breathe in light, right? You breathe
Yeah.
in truth, you breathe in joy, you breathe in abundance, right? And so you just breathe those into your body, and then all of a sudden, and again, you can feel it getting lighter in here,
Mhm.
right? And so anytime, it's a really cool process, right? But anytime anytime that happens, right? It's one of those things where that's a beautiful thing, right? That can just create
Yeah.
a shift. And the whole goal, so the point of doing this, right, in addition to the fact that you're going to feel better, you're going to start to really become in control of your life. And it's not so much, I know like our one of our things is about being in control, but it's more about not only being in control, but being able to handle anything that comes your way, right? Could you
Mhm.
be in that space of trusting, right? Could you be in that space? And it's a lifelong process. So it's not like, oh, after this call, you will be in the space of trust at all
I know.
times,
No, I
right?
know. I
you know
know. Mhm.
so it's more about, okay, can I start to see, okay, this is serving me, how is this serving me, what is this helping me to come, and again, going into that process of I'm leaning into more. And
Yes.
what happens to, this is an important thing to mention, that's an important part of the work that I do, right, is so as we move up into lighter spaces of being, first of all, we return to the powerful manifestors that we have always been.
Mm.
Because density, which can be like fear, guilt, shame, control, anger, all of those feel heavy in our bodies. When I say
Mhm.
density, that's what I mean.
Mhm.
Density weighs us down and it ties us to this physical reality.
Right.
So as we clear that stuff that's not even our truth, right? Fear is not our truth. It's the way that we've learned how to function in this world. But if you're living from that space of who you truly are as a being, you're not rooted in fear,
Right.
right? Which is, I mean, again, lifelong journey, right? But it's one of those things, as those start to shift, you return to the light being that you are. And as you return to that light being that you are, right, you return to higher states like joy, peace, gratitude, light, love, right? You return to the
Mhm.
higher states. You return to the powerful manifester that you are, because when we are not as weighed down, that's when, you're literally, you think of something and you're like, oh my God, I was just thinking about that. And it's in my field, right? Because you're
Yeah.
in that space of flow,
Right.
right? You're in that space of of owning the magical being that we all are.
Right.
Right. And I should mention, I do in my book talk about like some of the cool, magical, and just small stories, like getting a flight change or time changed on a flight that I was going to because I was running late to, all just kinds of really fun stories. But how do we really own that magical manifester and the powerful manifester that we are? So
Mhm.
that's one benefit to starting to like, look at the subconscious, right? And look at our emotions, right? And then also with that, because intuition lives at a higher level of energy, right? A higher level of frequency, right? Intuition's always coming through, and we're all intuitive, right? But again, if you are hanging out in fear, first of all, it's going to be harder to identify, is this my intuition or is this my fear, right? But then also too, if you are hanging out in that space of fear, that intuition that's coming through, it's going to be harder to tune into because you're at the frequency of fear.
Mhm.
Does everything I said just
Oh
make
yeah.
sense?
It makes
Okay.
total
I know this
sense.
is like, again, these are like, they're amazing concepts. I have a way that I like to share it with them, and sometimes it can be new, right? So I just want to make sure it's like, and I talk
Yeah,
fast.
yeah.
There's a lot of energy coming through. So I just want to make sure it makes sense and it's easy to understand. But basically the point of that being is that, when we're in those higher states of being, which again, you continually keep growing and expanding and moving into those. But when we are in those higher states of being, then all of a sudden intuition's coming in and we're like, oh my God, I just feel like I'm supposed to go left right now. I don't know why. I don't know what that's about, but I just know that I'm supposed to, and I'm just going to follow that.
Right. Whew. Wow. You could talk about this all day, couldn't you?
Oh yeah. Yes, I could.
So can you give a tip for how you stay in that energy throughout the day? I mean, do you have like a morning routine? Do you do little things throughout the day, mantras? What keeps you kind of in the lighter energy, the high vibrational energy?
One of the biggest things is I am with what is, right?
Mm.
So if and I work from home and I work for myself, right? But even when I wasn't, so I used to be in medical sales. And if something would happen, I made sure that I created space and time for myself, whether it was that day or that weekend, where I dealt with the feeling that had come up for me that wasn't working for me, right? So first and foremost, like if I'm feeling scared, I go with what is, right? If I'm feeling sad, or overwhelmed, whatever it is, I am with what is. So that's like first and foremost. So there's an energy coming into the planet right now that's encouraging us to cultivate calm, right? And I have a project called the Rewire Project. It's a 28-day project, right? That basically each day is going to get like a bite-sized piece of information, again, around that consciousness, right? To help you to see yourself clearly and just to help you to make new choices, right? So it's these small little bite-sized pieces that really create big shifts.
Mm.
But one thing that I really started to do, because this was about 3 months ago, was like, okay, like I've been doing this work and I live in a pretty great state, but there's certain times I'm like, I'm not choosing calm. I want to have a calm life, but then I'm making decisions that cause chaos, right? Or
Right.
overwhelm. Right. And so, one of the things that I started to do in addition to, so I started meditating. There's a great app out there called Calm that I
Yes,
love.
I'm
It's really great.
familiar. Yes,
So
it's wonderful.
yeah, that's an amazing one. I know there's a couple other ones too that I haven't tried personally, but that one I use daily, and they have a great one where they just have a new meditation every day that pops up on your screen, and so that's really fun because it's something new, and you don't have to go searching or figure out what you're going to listen to. It's right there for you.
Yeah, and it's like a reminder. Oh yeah, I need some calm. Let's do this.
Right.
I love it.
And then one other thing, so, this Rewire project that I'm talking about, I'm going to give you an example of something that's going to be shared in the program. So as somebody who grew up in a state of abandonment, right? And abandonment can occur, obviously, when a parent leaves, a parent passes, which were two of my things. When a parent works a lot, that can create abandonment. When your parents get divorced, right? So there's many different ways that abandonment can show up that you may or may not be aware of, right? And so what I started to realize is that growing up in my childhood, and I would ask everyone that's listening to this to tune in and see if this at all rings true for you. But growing up in my childhood, it was a very fear-based environment. Like that was just sort of the way scarcity and fear were kind of two strong energies that were in my household, right? So like scarcity, we're not going to have enough. And my mother's, unfortunately, her mantra, because of course in that time and space was not, we were not aware of like the impact of our words and all that, right? So her mantra when I was growing up was, we have no money, right? We don't have enough money. We have no money. So that was something that I grew up in, and that was just in my environment, mixed in with this fear of like, I had this subconscious fear of, okay, my dad had left when I was 2, and I had that like fear of like subconsciously, oh, people are going to leave, right?
Right.
So what I realized is I began to create my reality from that space, right? So every single day, subconsciously, or not every single day, but a lot of days, I would get up and I would just start to go into my day with this feeling of subconscious fear in my body. And that's how I would begin to create my day. Is this making sense so far?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So why I bring that up is, so one example of something that will be one of the days that I will bring to the surface, right, is like, okay, what state do you wake up in? And is the state that you wake up in the state you want to create your day from that day? Right? Because
We have a huge decision when we first wake up in the morning, how we want this day to look. That is so true.
And the vibration, right? The vibration I'm going into my day with. So if I wake up, some days I wake up and I'm calm, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if the old conditioning part of me is like, this is how we do reality, right? We wake up, we're in fear, and then we plow through our day. We start to go out into the world and create from that, right? And so noticing that state, right? First of all, noticing that state, and then going, oh my God, that's the state I'm creating from. That's not the state that I want to be in. Right. And so creating a practice, like whether then it's like, okay, I go into my meditation and I start to bring myself into the vibration I want to be in, which is calm or ease or, abundance, like whatever that is. Right. And just start to choose that so that then I can create from that space.
Yes.
Right. Versus, oh my God, I'm just going to plow through my day from the state of fear, and not even being conscious that I'm in that energy or the feeling of fear. And that's how I'm creating all aspects of my day.
It's like yelling at someone and telling them to stop yelling at you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, stop yelling at me, even though you're yelling at them, right? Yeah. That same thing.
So that's one example, right? Because it's something most of us are not attuned to. What state am I waking up in? And is that state the state I want to create that day from? Right. Yeah. And so just these small little bite-sized things. And once you can start to think about it, it's like, okay, then I can, when I'm conscious of that, because I wasn't for years, if not decades, I wasn't conscious of I'm even creating this way. But now that I'm conscious of that, it's like, okay, I notice it's like, okay, wait, the old me is like, this is how we feel. It's normal to me, right? That's how I feel safe, or quote unquote, fear is calm, right? Because that's my baseline state, right?
No, fear is comfortable.
Yeah, fear is comfortable. It's a great one. So, noticing that, and then, okay, so, the Rewire Project is all about creating calm and really bringing people to new levels of consciousness in their life so that they can really create. It's really setting people up for their next level. To me, 2019, one of the biggest energies that's out there for the whole collective is that 2019 is about creating that next level life, right? But to do that, we have to be aware of the subconscious things that are not working for us. And again, this program specifically is meant to give you kind of just these little bite-sized pieces, just to say, okay, wait, is what I'm doing what I really want to create in my life? Yeah,
it's like teach him a new language.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is.
Yeah, and it's meant to be. It's not meant to be a little tidbit, and then you get you can journal about it if you choose to that day. But it's just meant to it's like, okay, this is who I want to be. This is how I want to show up. And then
little baby steps. Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been so amazing. Before we end, is there anything else that you want to say about finding your happy?
No, I mean, I think I've said, yeah, it's basically one of those things, it's not so much about, it's just more about coming to your true self, right? Coming and being willing to be with what is, own all pieces of you, right? And just really be in that space of, one of the things I talk about a lot in my book is all around the space of self-love, right? And how do we love ourselves? The journey is to self-love and to self-worth and self-connection, right? And so when in that space is where the byproduct of happiness comes to life, right? And so it's one of those things that, when we can just allow ourselves to be with what is and allow ourselves to own all of our emotions, we can really step into this space that's so rich and juicy, and that meaning that we've been searching for or trying to find in things or outside of ourselves, all of a sudden it just aligns with us, right? And part of it is that the journey has always been about alignment. And really, can we come to that space within ourselves of aligning versus it's out there, it's up there, it's outside of us.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's what I would say.
That's so true. Like I always say, it's self-discovery, self-care, and self-love.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I love that the space of the connection to self, I think, is so important because because just as humans, right? And it's completely okay. It's completely normal, but it's just that space of self-connection instead of putting up the walls, right?
Yes.
Or pushing people away or pushing things away or, or just pushing away, right? Instead of that, we can start to tune into ourselves and go, oh my God, like what's going on with me? Like what's happening here? And it's in that space where we can find that compassion and again, that self-love and self-discovery. It's just a beautiful space to really be in and be willing to own and honor.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. You gave us so much information. Will you please let others know how they can contact you and what you have coming up? Sounds like this workshop that you're doing just sounds amazing.
Yeah, so so they can reach me at www.deboraacker.com.
Okay.
It's just DeborAhacker. That's my website. I do have on there a Living in Your Truth guide. And this is basically, it's one step tool per month, right? So you get this guide. This guide is free, right? But it's one step, one tool per month that you get, right? And you're meant to integrate it over the course of a month. So you don't have to literally do it every day, right? But it's meant to help you. And I give you 12 steps. So it's basically a year-long thing. And of course you can read through it and just eat it all up in one sitting, but it is meant to help, like with the hopes of you integrating, right? Because it takes 21 days to create a new habit. So
right.
that's a free option. I also have on YouTube, on my channel, I have it's a free video of the most common patterns. So we're talking about consciousness, right? And how do we identify that? But the most common patterns I see in my female clients, right? It's a clearing. So that clearing that I described of seeing that coming out of your body, that belief coming out of your body, and replacing it with a higher and more profitable operating state, right? That video has that as well. And then the two things that I'm doing right now, I have the Rewire project, which is, like I said, it's a 30-day project that I'm doing, or 28 days that I'm going to be doing. And again, it's one step per day. And if you go to my website, it will be up. So you guys will probably see, when you see this, it should be up. You'll see a link to it. It's titled The Rewire Project. And then the other thing that I'm doing is in this space, in this idea of creating calm, I am no longer really doing one-on-one single session calls. I was doing that for a while, but I do have basically a 90-minute call clearing. One of the things that I love to help people clear is clear around relationships. So clearing breakups, right? Clearing all these energies and these beliefs that we take into creating our 2019, right? Where, whether it's around breakups, around tough work relationships or tough work situations, right? All these energies that we're bringing into 2019, you can start with a much cleaner slate, right? When you clear those. So I have a 90-minute call that is going to be out in the same amount of time. I will also have details up about that on my website. But if you're interested in, again, really cleaning out some of the stuff that we're taking into 2019 that's not working for you, right? Or if you had a rough year and you're wanting to clear out some of that stuff, but again, it can be around, clearing breakups. It can be around clearing work situations, work relationships. It can also be around wanting to create abundance in your life. But it's all about really creating this calm and clearing out anything that's not working for you. So it's a 90-minute call. We covered, I don't even know how long it is right now, but you can see how much we covered just in 30, 40 minutes. So
I know, absolutely amazing.
Imagine that in a 90-minute thing, and it's all personalized for you and what you're desiring to create and wanting to work on. But
wow.
About right now.
When you do those clearings, I'm just curious, do you notice what happens after to the person? I'm sure they feel very light, but do they ever have stages where they feel heavy because it's their body's way of letting go of stuff?
So here's the thing. We are constantly, so when we're shifting are you familiar with the corkscrew effect? So basically, it's sometimes you clear something and it's no longer there. The story was ready to release. It's done. It's complete. You feel lighter. You feel more open. And sometimes someone moves up to the next level of vibration. Sometimes they still feel calm and feel relaxed. And sometimes that next level of vibration is about the next thing that needs to be cleared. You're saying, I want to create, for instance, for me, right, with the relationship pattern, I want to create an amazing relationship, right? Okay, the universe is great. We're going to give you everything that's in the way of that, right? That blocks you from having that thing that you're wanting, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
we're it didn't work, right?
Right.
that did work. It's just you're moving up vibrationally into that next level vibration until literally, again, nothing's in your way. It's a complete clear slate, clean slate for you to really create that thing that you're wanting.
Oh, wonderful. And I don't see who couldn't use a clearing before 2019.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether you had an amazing year or not, oh my gosh, just starting on a clean slate. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, having stuff come up that you don't even know is there that needs to be released.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing. That's again one of my zones of genius, right? Is helping people to see levels of like places within them that they just can't see that are blocking, you know, from what they're desiring from coming in.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Oh, this has been so awesome. Thank you so much, Deb.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here and everything. And yeah, I'm just really grateful and really appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. Please hang on till I'm done here.
Yes, we'll do.
Thank you for taking your time for us and for your growth. I hope you discovered new happy habits to support your happiness. Please reach out with questions or if you need more support at Happy Balance Facebook group or balancewithcourtney.com. If you need one-on-one inspiration and support, please book a happy call. Thank you so much, Deb.
Thank you.